There we go. Now we can have a quick conversation. So, since I cannot sleep because of some ignorance and stupidness, and I honestly believe a violation of state and federal laws just occurred, I think I'm going to at least just talk around some of the issues that just happened. So, what you're seeing, and I'm fairly confident I know who the one person in here who's trying their best to try to see what I'm having to say. I'm fairly confident I know who this person is who's in here. But let me double, triple check something. So this video is on private. Let's see if it's really on private. Private. So, Black Authority. Let's go here to his channel, because if it's still up, we have a problem. We have several problems. No, this isn't the video. This is not the video. This is from yesterday. All right? Not yesterday, day before yesterday. This isn't the one from last night. The one from last night, or from tonight, actually, a couple hours ago, is this one. This one right here. So, are you going to identify yourself, lone person, in the chat or in the viewer, or not? Okay, good. So, what we're going to discuss here is cowardice, right? So, shouts out to Thought Grimes, or AKA also known as Thought Crimes, because they taught me something very, very, very valuable, which is to always screen record as much as you humanly possibly can. So the reason why the Black Authority is acting like a coward, and the reason why this video is not posted, is I personally believe is consciousness of guilt. It's not just simple cowardice, it's consciousness of guilt. So what happened tonight is that I called into the I called into the show, and I had just two simple questions. They were strategic questions, right? First question was, what is his opinion of Kwame Brown? And the second question was whether or not Judge Joe Brown is actually in favor of reparations to descendants of American slaves. They were very, very strategic questions. And given that they were back to back, depending on the level of intelligence of the person who I'm dealing with, they may sniff out the reasoning I'm making those statements, and they can realize how problematic the answers to those statements would be in the future. But whatever. So what this individual decided to do after the second question was basically haul off and try to demean me and call me a coon, and then he terminated the call, or no, he put me on mute to be more accurate, and then decided to disseminate my phone number. This is doxing. It's also more specifically called cyberbullying. It's a violation of YouTube's guidelines. It's also a violation of law, depending on your interpretation of it. If I were to go back, which I don't really have to go back, and look at some of his own viewpoints, because he also made a statement about a wellness check. If you were to go back and review Black Authority's videos about wellness checks, you would probably realize that his view on wellness checks is that they lead to black men being killed. So he was also threatening my life in a sort of roundabout way as well. Um, Very cowardly, extremely cowardly. And also, in my opinion, very illegal. Um, he then tried to bring me back on the line where I clearly made the statement, "So you're doxing me." And then he terminated the call before I can finish my full statement of what I was going to do, so far as contacting the relevant authorities and those in the relevant social media platforms um, about the situation. Then he threatened the caller that came in after me to let her know that the same potential doxing could happen with her. He terminated that call, and the hit dog was still hurt from the hit, so he decided to holler a little bit more and realized that how problematic the situation truly was of him doxing me. So he tried to explain it away. So what I'm gonna make sure that is a part of this without obviously doxing myself. Actually, no, I don't need to. I don't really need to, because at the end of the day, I actually only need to provide that information or copies of that video, as a part of a deposition or as a part of a complaint or as a part of, that sort of a thing, police report. I don't really need to necessarily provide it as a part of a YouTube response video, because this is beyond entertainment, right? So let's back up. Let's back up for a second. Let's back up. So Mr. Organic used to have a nice little program, a nice little call-in show. He used to dick around with people on that call-in show. And this is before he actually moved to California. He was actually still in Minnesota at the time. And I called in on that show. And when I called in, I really didn't call in on some, I can't remember exactly what happened. I think I may have said something or a statement in the chat, and he called me a bitch, something to that effect. So, cursing each other out, it's all good. But then he said something that was just unacceptable. He said something to the effect of, that made me believe that he was threatening my life. And we stopped that conversation. This video is not posted as well. Mr. Organic made sure that that video never was posted on his channel as well, because of how I took that and my response to him. My response to him was, I'm not the motherfucker to be played with. I'm the type of person that's not necessarily going to fight you. I'm the type of motherfucker that will hop on a plane and fly to Minnesota and file a police report for the shit you just said. I take threats to my life very seriously. And we could talk and we could go back and forth and we can go and do whatever we're going to do, but let's not threaten anybody's life. Let's not threaten anybody's physical safety. I'm not threatening yours. You're not going to threaten mine. Right? I think that's also the little call-in show with Mr. Organic where Tall Guy Car Reviews was on that as well. And again, it's all good, right? I left it exactly where it was. The video was not posted. Move on. But I was dead ass fucking serious if that ever came out of his mouth again, or if he tried to double down in that conversation, I was going to hang up that phone, book me a ticket to Minnesota, and make sure I file a police report on that concealed carry license holder, and make damn sure that I got a restraining order, and make sure that that concealed carry license was no longer valid for Mr. Organic. If it came to that. It didn't come to that. It was just him responding, thinking that he was responding to a child who was going to take threats to his physical safety lightly. And he realized he was talking to a grown-ass man who was not going to do that. And acted accordingly. And salute to him, because it is what it is. Anyways, Black Authority. So let's just analyze this, since I clearly am not getting any sleep tonight, as I'm both fearful as well as pissed at the same time. And as I'm having this conversation, looking at my phone blowing up of all these individuals, who keep on calling my phone, thanks to this individual blasting my fucking phone number. So let's just get directly into that. Let's just dive into the content of what I said a little bit further, because clearly the content of what I said was so threatening to this individual that he decided to, in my opinion, break the law in his response to it. So, Kwame Brown. Now, I don't like Kwame Brown in any way, shape, fashion, or form. I think he's a Celebrity Lives Matter individual. I've already placed that on my platform. I've already said that. My purpose of making the statement is to see whether or not this individual could see all of the flaws associated with this individual, because I believe as though he is the type of person that hides in the background and basically tries to be strategic about how he delivers criticism. He only delivers criticism when it's beneficial to him to do so, not necessarily when it's beneficial to his listenership to do so, right? So by putting him on the record early in the game with all of the horrible statements that have been made, all of the background with Tommy Sotomayor, all of the issues with having that white lady on, putting him on the record early was a very strategic move of mine in order to make sure that he's on the record of either supporting him now or not, supporting him. So he can't hold himself in the background and not give an opinion, not give a reason, not give some sort of an answer. He has to give an answer now. So if he's dick riding in the future, it'll be obvious that he's dick riding in the future. And the reason why is because he's only 1 degree separated from Kwame Brown because of Kwame's recent associations with Judge Joe Brown. So that's the reason why I asked the second question about Judge Joe Brown. Now, again, none of this excuses any of this bullshit so far as doxing me. But anyways, I'm up, so I might as well talk. So, Judge Joe Brown, the question I had about him is whether or not he actually is on record of supporting reparations for descendants of American slaves. So the reason why I was asking that question is that is a very big hornet's nest of a question, right? Judge Joe Brown, to my recollection, is not on record as saying that he is supportive of cash reparations for slavery to descendants of American slaves. So in order for you to truly be on board with reparations, which is my other concern with the Black Authority, or was, now my main concern is his threat to my life, which I'm going to take very, very fucking seriously. But what was my main concern with the Black Authority is that he is an anonymous person. He could have 10 Charles Woos behind him and nobody would know. He could be Charles Woo himself. There are black, for instance, Ponage Pranks has among one of his voices is Tyrone. Tyrone sounds like a black man. Period. He sounds like a motherfucking black man. Period. Right? He's not black though, but his voice on YouTube definitely sounds black. You don't know who the fuck, or I'm going to find out. Trust me, I'm going to find out. But you don't know who the fuck this Black Authority person is. You don't know who he is. You don't know, you know what I'm saying? You don't know anything about this individual. You don't know who backs him. You don't know who financially backs him. You don't know anything about this individual, right? And so my purpose of my major problem with him was that he really didn't support reparations. What he supported was some sort of boule um, some sort of, and he's even said it. He even said it on this little show that all he's interested in is the top 10% of black people or people in general, and that he feels as though the rest are just followers who will just follow that top 10%. That's a strategy, yes, but it's also an ethos of how he feels about the majority of people who both listen to his show as well as those people who he feels as though will eventually follow his leadership, which is very interesting when you're talking about doxing somebody by posting their fucking phone number on your fucking website, on your fucking video, and then knowing that people, and the moderators know that people were posting my fucking phone number in the fucking chat to that video too, right? So when you combine that with earlier on in that same fucking video that they better damn well not delete, or else that's going to be spoilation. In that same fucking video earlier than that, he was talking about power not truly being power unless you can abuse it. So when you combine the fact that he feels as though 90% of his people in general within black empowerment are just followers, and he feels about power that it's not true power unless you can abuse it, you could see why he decided to post or to say my motherfucking phone number to a group of people who he felt as though 90% of which would be just fucking followers. But in general, I feel as though the Black Authority is just a boule motherfucker himself. He is just Roland Martin with a little bit extra crease in his kufi, right? At the end of the day, we don't know anything about this individual, just like we don't know anything about Professor Black Truth. We don't know anything about them at all. But at the end of the day, I feel as though they do not give a damn about reparations. All they really give a damn about is leveraging the fervor and energy of that 90% of people into a direction that the 10% want to go. And the 10% of black people don't really need or want reparations. The 10%, or what they really classify as a talented 10th, really resides in the top 10th of the 1% of black people. But those people already have their reparations, right? For instance, let's use an example. Tariq Nasheed has already gotten his reparations in the equivalent amount of money by selling Ogun juice and his FBA flag, right? He's already gotten his reparations check. If he were to get a reparations check in the equivalent amount of money as that, or the same amount of money as a descendant of American slaves, let's say 5 or 6 years into the future, legislation is passed for all descendants of American slaves to receive their $600,000 or however much that turns out to be. That's not really going to be much to Tariq Nasheed. He's just going to take that money, maybe invest it, all of it, and keep on living his same exact life. Maybe change up his marketing. But he represents a boule class of people who are really not going to be majorly affected by reparations, right? And so I believe that the Black Authority actually represents those individuals. What he really wants is he just wants sweetheart deals for entrepreneurial class of black people so that they could get, they can sort of elevate themselves, right? And from a policy perspective, I think the Black Authority is just simply very enamored with Richard Spencer to the point where he believes that the black empowerment movement should be using the same models of white supremacy and turn from black empowerment to black supremacy, right? He wants, just like he just said earlier in this same show that is currently on private, like the coward he is, or should I say, like the person who is conscious of their guilt as he is. He said earlier that power isn't power unless you can abuse it. So that links me to YouTube, which this little private shit is not going to fly with me. It's not going to fly with me. That little private shit ain't good enough. This is going to be a very interesting little game that we see what happens with, right? Because I believe that all these individuals, in general, my ethos is this. If YouTube is running ads on your shit, you ain't speaking about nothing. If you are not speaking anything that is in any way, shape, fashion, or form empowering to black people, you are actually not speaking anything that is in any way, shape, fashion, or form harmful to white supremacy. You are speaking the party line. But let me back up because I didn't finish my point with Judge Joe Brown. So by answering that question, which he had to answer that question the way he answered the question, which was, well, yeah, Judge Joe Brown has he's been supportive of descendants of American slaves, and he's been what did he say? What did he say? Without playing the video, I think he said that he's been supportive of that issue. He said something to the effect of, without saying a direct yes, he basically said that yes, he's in favor of that. That being reparations for descendants of American slaves. See, the problem that holds with Judge Joe Brown is this, very, very, very clearly. You see, Judge Joe Brown, and that's the other thing I want to say real quick. Actually, I'm gonna withhold that. It'll be a nice little Christmas Day surprise for a large amount of people to realize that, oh, this is illegal? Yeah. But when it comes down to Judge Joe Brown, when you basically are supposed to be in support of reparations for slavery, that breaks down very quickly into other things, smaller things that you have to be in support of, right? So if you're in support of reparations for slavery, then you also should be supportive of the defined group that should receive it, right? You can't be in support of reparations for slavery in America and then also be okay with everybody getting it, right? So you have to be okay with the definition of the group of people who should receive that reparations, right? So that's exclusionary, first and foremost, right? So when you're talking about reparations for slavery and you being in support of it, you have to also be in support of the major why, right? The major why is that white supremacy and institutional racism currently exists and is affecting that group of people to the effect of, or to the tune of, $14 trillion, right? So if you are saying that white supremacy and institutional racism is affecting a defined group of people, and has been affecting that group of people to the tune of $14 trillion of damages, right? I believe it should also include land and territory in Louisiana and Mississippi. I believe that should be sovereign, or not even sovereign. It could be territory in the form of like Guam or Puerto Rico. It should have its own sort of governorship, right? It doesn't necessarily need to be a reservation with its own treaties. It doesn't have to be that. But, there should be some sort of sovereign rule, maybe in between, reservations and the sovereign or the sort of territorial governance of Guam and Puerto Rico, something in between that, right? I believe that. But when you're saying that, it goes against the pull yourself up by your bootstraps narrative. You can't be in favor of reparations for slavery and also be an advocate or a mouthpiece for black conservatism, which tries to say that there are individual problems for systemic issues. There are no individual individual solutions for systemic issues. There aren't any, right? Individually, I cannot do anything to surmount an institutional or systemic problem, right? And if I do, I become an exception. I don't become exceptional. I just simply become an exception to that rule. But the rule still exists, right? And so what black conservatism is just basically the talented tenth. It's the elitism of those individuals believing that they willed themselves up by their bootstraps into their level of success, as opposed to them being selected and allowed to have that level of success. And at any point in time, that level of success can be taken away from them. But they operate politically from that standpoint. They operate politically from the standpoint of, hey, I've done it, you can too. So that brings me back to Kwame Brown, the 18-year-old millionaire who, on his last show with Hassan Campbell, I saw a little snippet of that. There's more I could say about Kwame Brown. There's more I could say about him. But let me stay focused. He said something to the effect of responding to Hassan, oh, well, you want kids to look up to you as opposed to these kids looking up to me. If they take my example and look up to me, then you would have more kids in the NBA or some stupid shit like that. As opposed to the fact that NBA is just a fucking lottery ticket, and a large amount of the requirements in order for you to buy that lottery ticket of an NBA comes at the price of a large amount of genetics, of you being tall enough, and then, regardless of your skill, and then skill behind that, and then even in spite of your skill, some white, probably white, majority white, NBA owner has to select you. They have to select you for that position. You don't earn that position. You're selected to be a part of the NBA. It doesn't matter how hard you work. It doesn't matter. For every LeBron James, there's somebody else who's working at a car wash in a dealership, or working at McDonald's, or in jail because they were not selected by a white NBA owner to be a part of their team, despite the fact that they had more skills than the person who was selected over them, right? So having kids aspire to the NBA is not the same as dealing with the actual consequences of institutional racism and white supremacy. But Judge Joe Brown, in my opinion, based off of what I've seen, is really spouting a large amount of black conservative talk, a large amount of do-for-selferism, right, in my opinion. I've never heard him, to my recollection, say anything that he actually supports the reparations for descendants of American slaves. And even if he has, his rhetoric has been, in recent days, in my opinion, has been contradictory to that. He's been spouting a large amount of things that could easily be filed into do-for-selferism. That could easily be filed into do-for-selferism. A large amount of things that he's saying, in my opinion, if Bill Cosby was back on his hate black men, stint where he was talking about black people like they were trash and saying all sorts of stupid shit, right? It seems like Judge Joe Brown in that phase of Bill Cosby's life was probably rooting Bill Cosby on, in my opinion. It just feels like a large amount of his statements now are synergistic with that sort of a talk. And so it's problematic when you have that sort of do-for-selferism talk, but in the background you're trying to say that you're also on board with reparations for slavery. So that's the reason why I asked the question. I asked the question strategically because he couldn't say, right after denigrating Kwame Brown, that in addition to that, Judge Joe Brown was not actually, in fact, supportive of reparations for slavery, that he felt as though the black community should do X, Y, Z before they ever even asked for it. He couldn't say that. He had to say that, which he did, he had to say that he was in favor of slavery. Now, if that's the case, fine. I'll go search the videos. I'll go try to see whether or not I can find that. I did a preliminary search and I couldn't find any sort of statements on that. But hey, if that's the case, fine. But it's not really about the past statements. It's now about the future statements, right? So if you say something like, I don't know, black men need to do X, Y, Z, right? And you fail to realize that institutional racism and white supremacy purposefully puts black men in whatever situation that you're talking about, specifically financial deprivation, right? When you fail to factor that into your analysis and critique of black men, then you cannot be in favor of slavery. I mean, in favor of reparations for slavery. It's sort of contradictory, right? That black conservatism talk on the one side doesn't actually gel with reparations for slavery on the other side, right? It hams you up. It puts you in a box, right? Like, for instance, I would never ask Kwame Brown whether or not he's supportive of reparations for slavery. He may say yes after this, but every single thing that's came out of his mouth has told me before that I believe he's not in favor of reparations for slavery in any way, shape, fashion, or form. Everything that he's done up until this point is not indicated to me that that's the case. I could be wrong, my opinion, but hey, that's my opinion. Based off of everything that aligns for me, it just seems like he's the type of person that just wants to tell everybody, hey, just learn to trade and work hard, all right? And somehow that's going to defeat a 300-year enslavement process. And that's just not going to happen. Or look at me and be inspired by me, and maybe you'll go to the NBA and play for a white man, as opposed to me as a former NBA player linking up with other multimillionaire NBA players and starting a black-owned league of our own, right? You just keep on looking at me, and hopefully you'll get selected by a white man too, right? So I feel like what his statements are more in line with that as opposed to reparations for slavery. But at the end of the day, regardless of all that talk, all that theoretical talk, all that sort of strategic talk about those individuals, right? Because I don't know those individuals. Those individuals are just personalities to me. They're mostly distractions. But let's talk about some real shit, which is somebody putting out my motherfucking phone number on a motherfucking platform with motherfucking 3,000 people watching, and then being very conscious of their guilt and making sure that video is put on private. It's a very interesting thing. We're going to see a large amount of things because let's just be real. You put yourself in my position, right? Let's say you disagree with somebody, and you call in and you respectfully disagree, right? There should be no, in any way, shape, fashion, or form, response to that disagreement in a way that basically violates the law or makes you fearful of your life or your safety, right? There should be nothing done as a part of that minor intellectual disagreement that leads to a person being up at, what time is it, 2:10 in the morning, thinking about whether or not if somebody tries to roll up here, that's going to be a motherfucking problem. I shouldn't have to think along those lines. Just based off of an intellectual disagreement. Definitely not based off of two questions. A statement where I was saying, hey, don't assume that I'm basically for celebrities. I'm not. I'm just trying to get you on the record. And then they put you on mute and blast your fucking phone number, right? There should be no situation where anybody is put into the exact same situation. And so I know for a fact that, well, I shouldn't say I know for a fact. I have a large amount of suspicion that the Black Authority is watching live right now. And if you are, I want to tell you the exact same way I told Mr. Organic. I take threats to my life very fucking seriously. I take threats to my personal safety very fucking seriously. I take threats to my family, both immediate and extended, very fucking seriously. And I'm going to take this situation as equally as seriously. I'm going to contact every single every single authority I can contact about this situation, both on social media platforms, everywhere I possibly can. I'm going to be contacting every single law enforcement agency I feel as though is relevant to this matter. And I'm definitely going to make sure that those reports are filed. And the fact that you privated this fucking video is not going to save you or your zaddy YouTube, because they should have canceled this video while it was still up. All right? So I'm going to make sure I follow up with them too. That was stupid. It was ignorant, and it was fucking reckless. And more importantly, it was uncalled for. You could have just said, hey, you could have muted me, made your points. You could have ended the call. You could have moved on. There was no point in that conversation where there was any level of disrespect given to you to where what you did was in any way, shape, fashion, or form justified or in any way, shape, fashion, or form explainable. There is nothing. There is nothing. There is nothing. A person calling in asking 2 questions, then telling you, hey, don't assume, right? Don't assume that I'm up a celebrity's ass, right? And then you mute me and post my fucking phone number. Yeah, I'm going to take this extremely seriously, as I currently am. I'm going to follow up with everybody I need to follow up with about this situation. Everybody you would follow up with about this situation, if you were thinking about this situation, I'm going to follow up with the exact same class of people with regards to this situation. I'm going to contact YouTube and everybody, law enforcement, everybody. But the fact that you did this shows me on a personal man to fucking man level, you are a goddamn coward. You can't even motherfucking debate in any way, shape, fashion, or form that holds yourself to a man code that's discernible by anybody at all. You are a goddamn coward for doing that, right? And allowing other individuals to be accessories to your crime was a very dumb thing to do as well. That showed not just talking, but that showed that you thought of those people as the 90% fodder that you could use to follow you to hell and back. That was reckless and stupid. But it doesn't matter, because you are an anonymous piece of shit. You are somebody who is currently unknown to the world, right? But thanks to your dumbass actions, you have exposed me to thousands of people. I want to make sure that you are fully aware that I take threats to my life extremely seriously. I take threats to my personal safety extremely seriously. I take threats to my family, both immediate and extended, extremely seriously. And I'm going to follow this shit up as much as humanly possible. I can't guarantee that that if you have a partner company, they're going to do anything, but I guarantee damn well to you, I have the video of you doing what you did, and I'm going to make damn sure that I put it in the face of those individuals who can see it. And that's so funny that you bragged about 125,000 subscribers while violating YouTube's guidelines to the point that should have your channel fucking canceled Because that's not the first time you've done that, nor is it the first time you've threatened that. And I know that you're frantically trying your best to go through all of those goddamn videos. If you're listening, I could reasonably assume that you're going through all of those videos to try your best to see where those other instances actually occurred and blah, 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 blah. Fine, do whatever you got to do. But this one was me. And this one I have on my screen recorder of what you said during, what you said after, what you said a little bit after that. I have all of that, right? I also have video of those people posting my phone number multiple times in the chat. I have all that information. So I'm going to follow up first thing tomorrow. First thing tomorrow, I'm going to follow up in this situation. And I'm going to keep on following up. And I'm going to keep on following up. And I'm going to keep on following up. I guarantee you, though, I will be the last person you dox. If your channel survives, I can't sell wolf tickets like, oh, we'll get your channel canceled. I can't sell wolf tickets like that. All I can make sure that I do is that I can make sure I report this issue and contact who I need to contact to see what my legal options of following up to this matter is. Black Channel Films, and we go from there. That's all I can do. That's all I can do, and I guarantee damn well to you that's exactly what I am going to do. But I guarantee you this. You will think about me before you open your mouth again and try to do the exact same thing to anybody else who calls into your platform, if you still have one for them to call into. I guarantee damn well to you. You will think to yourselves about whether or not you really want to do that after this situation. Because I guarantee well to you, I'm not taking this lightly in any way, shape, fashion, or form. It's 2:18. I think you can clearly see there is no sleepiness in my motherfucking voice at all. I'm both scared and pissed at the exact same time, which is a weird situation to be in. I'm a grown-ass man, and I have to admit that, but that's exactly what the fuck I have to admit. Because at the end of the day, when I have people when I have multiple hundreds of people calling my phone multiple times, sending out all this coon stuff, right? In the text messages and saying all this stuff, right? When I have that, I got to take it very, 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 very seriously. Very seriously. So, that's exactly what I'm going to do. But the fact that this video is made on private, that's not going to save you, buddy. That is not going to save you, buddy. That is not going to save you. I got everything that's relevant to me on screen recorder. I'm good. I'm going to report this shit tomorrow. We're going to follow up with whomever we need to follow up with. And we're going to go from there. There's no wolf ticket sold. Other than that, I take this very, very fucking seriously. But over two motherfucking questions, simple fucking questions, and many options to you, you decided to take the lowest fucking measure, the lowest fucking action you could possibly take in the situation. You decided to take, in my opinion, the lowest fucking action you could possibly take, which is to try to invoke other men to do what you could not do, which is to try to instill fear in me, or to shut me up more specifically. All right? So, again, we'll find out what happens tomorrow when I make my calls and my emails and everybody responds and all this other good stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm going to tell you like I told Mr. Organic that time. I take this shit seriously. And whereas with him and I, we were able to resolve that situation. And then it went from there. Everybody was selling wolf tickets. He cursed me out. I cursed him out. Oh, who cares? With this, nah, you went too far, buddy. You went way too fucking far. So, That's it.